Welcome back, guys. We are here for our Wilds of Eldrain limited set review. Today we're going to be looking at all of the green cards and giving them a rating between 1 through 5 on how we think they will perform in the average limited deck. Sealed and draft smashed together. Now, we will be going over different mechanics and archetypes very quickly, so we'll mention them. If you've missed our introduction to Wilds of Eldrain, check that video out first. It'll definitely give you guys some insight to some of the things that we mention in this video, where again, we go over all of those mechanics as well as draftable archetypes and themes throughout the set. So that's already up. Make sure you check it out. Welcome back, Yanks.
Good to be back for the fifth and, well, last color, but not last video with multicolor and artifacts still to go.
Yeah, so let's jump straight in to our first green card, Agatha's Champion, 5 mana for a 4/4 human knight with Bargain. It has Trample, and when it enters the battlefield, if it was bargained, it fights up to 1 creature you don't control. I'm a fan of this. I would happily get rid of like a food token, which is in this color. I think bargains in this color will be very strong and easy to activate, or a roll token would be pretty easy to bargain here. What do you think, Yanks?
Yeah, and it's nice that it's a, obviously bargain is a choice. So if you can't fight anything or don't have any sacrifice, it's not a dead card like some fight spells are if you don't have any creatures on board.
Yeah, it's a fight on a stick.
Yeah, now it is fight, unlike some green stuff we've been seeing more and more punch. This is an actual fight.
And it doesn't add any toughness. Oftentimes it's like add +1/+1 or +1/+2 or something along those lines. So you don't get the added benefit, but the difference is that this is just card advantage if you're killing something small. So you're less likely to hit a premium target with this because it is a fight with no added bonus, but you are going to get card advantage versus just card parity, right?
Yeah, you're probably trading down on mana for a smaller thing, but you're left with a 4/4 Trampler, which is a real thing.
Yeah, definitely a real thing. Rating-wise, I like this card. I think I'm going to give this a 3.
Yeah, I think it's a 3 as well. Maybe as we go through green, if we see it's really easy to get things to bargain away, it might even go up.
Beanstalk Worm, 5 mana for a 5/4 with Reach. It also has Adventure. So for 2 mana, you can cast it as a sorcery. You may play an additional land this turn. So a little ramp. I don't think this is as good as Beanstalk Giant, where you used to go get a land. I think this is one of the lower impact adventures that we've seen.
Yeah, you're not really getting any sort of card advantage out of this adventure like you usually do, because the spell is just only works if you have another card in hand. There's no card advantage on that sorcery.
Yeah.
So it's really just a 1-for-1.
He's a little cutie though, but I don't think that this is great. I think the creature side is fine. And if for whatever reason you don't have anything to do on turn 2, sure, a little ramp. But again, I would value this much higher if we could go get a land. So I'm going to go ahead and give this only a 2. I don't love it.
Yeah, I think it's a 2 as well.
All right, Bastille Bloodline, 2 mana for an aura. Creature gets +2/+2, and you can pay 5, return it from your graveyard to your hand. That's nice because it mitigates any of the downside of having these auras because you prevent yourself from getting 2-for-1. You can actually just keep returning this for a pretty expensive cost, but actually I think that is pretty reasonable.
Auras that come back from the graveyard like this tend to play pretty well. The cost is usually pretty expensive, but that's because you're just getting it for free.
Yeah. And honestly, 2 mana for +2/+2 is very reasonable and very good for aggressive decks. And the reason that they don't want to run these is because they just get shut down by 1 removal spell, but no longer. So I actually like this card a fair amount.
I think it's all right. You're still, even if you're not getting fully 2-for-1 from a removal spell, you're getting killed on mana. So it's still a trade down in that case, but it definitely loses some of the downside.
It depends, right? Like if your creature's trading up, you feel pretty good. And then my idea is not that like, oh, I have to play this I have to get it back on turn 5 to get it back. The idea is that like, okay, you're a more aggressive deck, you have these things, and now you're sort of hellbent. So you're just dumping extra mana. I look at it like a mana sink more than anything else. It's just a thing to do later in the game to get back the value and mitigate the cost of those aggressive early creatures.
Certainly can do that, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever doing this on 5.
No. I wouldn't expect to.
Rating wise, I think it's playable in moderation. I'm going to give it a 2.5, but I'm never running more than one of these.
Probably a little lower at a 2. I'm always just nervous about auras, even though this one doesn't have as much downside as usual.
Yeah. All right. Blossoming Tortoise. He's so cute. I like turtle cards. 4 mana for a 3/3 turtle. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, mill 3 cards, then return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Activated abilities of lands you control cost 1 less, and land creatures get +1/+1. This is not a limited thing. It's a poor rate for a green creature, and I don't really want to be doing that ability, and I certainly don't want to mill myself for 3 as a requirement every turn.
You're getting a 3/3 for 4 and theoretically ramping. So it's not awful. The last 2 parts of the card don't matter. There is a rare cycle of creature lands in this set, but yeah, this is a mythic and that's a rare. So those are rare, so that's unlikely to ever come up.
Yeah, maybe I'm playing this to if I really, really want to ramp, and then I want to just like kind of chump double block with it. Kind of not chump, but like double block or use it in the more defensive side of things. But if I'm in an aggressive deck, I don't think I want to be smashing with this every turn, and it's just too slow on its own.
No, I don't think this card's particularly good. If you're trying to hit 6, on turn 5, particularly often, if you're trying to ramp up there, then I could see playing it, but it's certainly not exciting for a mythic.
Maybe it's good in like the Simic deck where you have these big haymakers and you're just playing this on 4, ramping up a bit, and then just, again, using it on defense where you're not like needing to mill half your deck.
It's also weird that we get a turtle that has like even stats. It's supposed to have big butts, turtles.
Yeah. Where's the booty, Mr. Turtle? I agree. Rating wise, I'm not in love with this. I think it's okay. If I pick it up kind of late, it'll probably make it in most decks for ramping purposes. But I think it's probably just like a 2.
It's just a 2. The call, even if you get the ramp, that only kind of brings it back to average.
Honestly, I'm kind of hesitant to even give it that. Bramble Familiar. Oh, it's so cute. Everything is cute in this set. It's killing me. 2 mana for an Elemental Raccoon. 7 mana for an Adventure. Mill 7 cards. Then put a creature, enchantment, or land card from among the milled cards onto the battlefield. Ooh. That is expensive, though, so you've definitely paid for it. But 2 mana, you also get a 2/2 that can tap for a forest. Pay 2, tap, discard a card, return Bramble from to its owner's hand, so you can bounce it. And then cast its thing. Oh, that's kind of cute. That's got some synergy. Honestly, I like it just for a 2/2 mana dork.
Exactly. It's a 2/2 mana dork with a lot of upside. Being able to do it again. Fetch Quest is kind of whatever.
I don't love Fetch Quest. I don't want to mill myself 7.
I don't either, but I guess it's nice late in the game in the sense that otherwise you just got a 2/2. At least you can turn it into something bigger, maybe.
Yeah, but then I mill half of my remaining deck and I hit like a 3/3, and I feel bad. Like, I'm sure there's a Golgari deck where I will be happy to do this, but in my average deck, 7 is a lot.
7's a lot. I don't know. We haven't seen recently, I don't think, too many formats that tend to get to milling.
Yeah, because you don't mill yourself for 7.
But everything's been so aggressive that it seems like lately that it doesn't. You end games with 15 cards left in your library.
Lord of the Rings, I feel like I was often getting down to the last like 10 cards or so for sure. And this doesn't seem particularly fast. We've seen like one big Haymaker Dragon, and that's kind of it.
Agreed. I don't think this is going to be necessarily fast, but a lot of the sets recently, maybe Lord of the Rings aside, have played out much faster than I expected them to.
Yeah, I don't think I'm casting this adventure very often, unless I've ramped into it in some way, but I think this is, for me, just a 3, and I'm always casting it as a creature.
It's just a free upside to me that might come up every once in a while. It's a 3 otherwise, though.
Brave the Wilds, 1 mana for a bargain. Sorcery. If the spell was bargained, target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental with haste. That's still a land. That does not say till end of turn.
Yep.
Okay, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So this is really good if you're trying to fix, and even then I'm probably not running it unless I can consistently bargain to turn a thing into a 3/3.
Lay of the Land sees play in, 3 or 4 color green decks. So this is just that with upside.
Yeah.
With the bargain upside. So, the card's okay. It's just, there's nothing exciting. At least if you have something late, if you have something to bargain away, like a food token late game, you can instead of a ramp spell that's useless, or a fixing spell that's useless, you get a 3/3. Hey, better than nothing.
Absolutely better than nothing, but that is not the average deck, right? You were saying a 4-color green deck. I agree, but I don't know if that's the average deck rating-wise.
Agreed.
So, happy to have this card. It certainly has a place, but I don't think it's going to see play in most green decks. But I think that's pretty normal for these sort of hunt and find mana cards. You'll know when you need them.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's a 1.5.
I agree.
Commune with Nature, 1 mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them, put one of them and put it into your hand. That's what it is. Put the rest onto the bottom in any order.
Kind of averages out to basically just be cycling. You get a better card than a random card, but you can also miss.
Yeah. I'm interested in cards like these when I have multiple high-powered creatures. Because, the chances of you hitting a creature is okay, but digging 4 deep and then 8 deep to get to whatever your big sort of game-ending bomb is pretty nice. But for the most part, I think I'm not playing these cards.
They basically end up as 23rd cards most of the time for me.
Yeah, I think it's like a 1.5.
Playing it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with playing it, but certainly cuttable. 1.5 sounds about right.
You have to have a pretty high number of creatures as well. I wouldn't run this unless you were running at least 15.
Sounds about right.
Curse of the Werefox, 3 mana for a sorcery. Create a monster role attached to a creature you control. When you do, that creature fights up to 1 creature you don't control. Okay, so the monster roll is +1/+1 in trample, so it gives you a little bit of a boost, and that roll is permanent, so kind of cool to see a fight spell that is leaving a lasting effect on the board. Sorcery speed, hey, don't like that. I've gotten spoiled with these being instant speed and being punches.
It's funny how much better these cards have gotten from the days of Hunt the Weak.
Yes, I was going to say the same.
4 mana sorcery, and you still got +1/+1, and it stayed in a counter, but you didn't have it wasn't up to 1, so you had to fight. You didn't get the trample. You didn't get the second permanent or an extra permanent for other things.
Yep. Rating-wise, I think this is kind of Green's removal, so it's probably like a 3.5.
I think at this point, I think it's a 3.5. We might see, if we see some punch spells, then maybe this gets a little worse.
Yep. Defense of the Heart, 4 mana for an enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep. If an opponent controls 3 or more creatures, sacrifice Defense of the Heart, search your library for up to 2 creature cards, put those cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Wait, what? You could just do that? So they have 3 1/1s, they have 3 rats, and then you just play this and you say, come, you have to sack your rats or find a way to kill them, and then I will do a thing.
Yeah, this was from Exodus, I think, where this was originally printed. Oh no, Urza's Legacy. It was one of the really old sets. Card's great.
It's very interesting. Obviously, if you're very behind and those creatures are going to kill you, it might be too little too late. But I feel like there's going to be a ton of times where you're just, kind of in this sticky situation. They have a few 1/1s, you have a 3/2 or whatever, and you're just kind of hanging out looking at each other, and you just play this, and you can get the best 2 creatures in your deck.
It doesn't even have to be behind. You read this card, you think this is fine when you're behind because they've got 3 creatures. You could have 5 creatures, and this still works. It's not like they have to have 3 or more than you.
I was just saying this isn't good if you're very behind, right? Because like you play this, you top deck this, you play it, and then they kill you. So you have to have some sort of like board presence. Because if they have 3 creatures, then there's a really good chance, unless they're rats. If you're doing nothing else, then you might be in some bad news bears. And they could just attack you and force you to have to chump or double block in such a way that this won't activate. But it does make combat really difficult for your opponents. Doubling Season, 5 mana. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens, create double that many tokens instead. If an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, put twice instead. So counters, there are roles that put counters, so that's super relevant. And there are food tokens and treasure tokens and rat tokens. There's a lot of tokens. And roles themselves are you can't put 2 of those on, right?
Yeah, that doesn't do anything. Unless it's I don't know how it necessarily works on ones that are like targeting other target creature. No, it would just put 2 on that. Yeah. So you can't like retarget the other
but one. It would affect one of them going into the graveyard.
Yes.
So that's cute. Because there are plenty of like rolls going into graveyard or enchantments going into graveyard abilities. Someone's asking if rolls stack. They do not. You can only have 1 roll per creature, which I think is a bit weird, but also keeps things like more stable.
One roll that each player controls.
Yeah.
So they can have the cursed one on it, and you can have one.
I mean, I think this is a playable card in the right deck, but I think the average deck will not have enough tokens to make this worth it.
I agree with that. I think you'll find decks that want this, but I mean, this is in the set for Commander reprint.
It's a bit of a build around, so I'm going to say it is a 1.5.
Agreed, I like 1.5.
Elvish Archivist, 2 mana for an 0/1 Elf Artificer. When 1 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. This ability triggers only once each turn. Whenever 1 or more enchantments enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So I don't think either of those things will be difficult to trigger in green between rolls and food tokens. So I think this is a very good card. I wish it had a little better stat line.
I like this card a lot. It shouldn't. We certainly have already seen a number of roll cards. I'm certain we'll see food cards, like you said, given that black-green is the food deck. I understand why it's got such bad stats, because otherwise it would just get out of control real fast with the artifact in terms of size.
Yeah, and this has an extra ability. Well, no, it's actually not an extra ability. Like the last time we saw this, there's the Selesnya Champion or whatever. It's a 1/3 for 3 that does basically the same thing. Put a +1/+1 counter and draw a card every time an enchantment comes into play. So this is a little different, but at least you start with something, right?
True. Yeah, this is a much worse late game draw.
I still think it's good though. I'm still playing this card quite highly. I think it's like a 2.5. Oh, sorry, a 3.5.
I was on the fence between 3.5. 3.5 sounds good.
Yeah, I also am. The reason I bumped it up is just because I think having both sides of this coin will make it easy to trigger in most decks, and then some decks will just go above and beyond and make it like kind of a haymaker. So I was happy for a bump.
It's fair.
Quick shout out to Astral's Flame. Thank you guys so much. We are recording for YouTube, so I apologize if I'm not as hyped. Thank you guys. Welcome. All right. Feral Encounter, green for a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may exile a creature card from among them. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may cast the exiled card this turn. At the beginning of the next combat phase, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power on up to 1 target creature you don't control.
That's a lot of text.
So this is interesting because you play this pre-combat. This lets you dig for the creature, play the creature, and then that creature will fight at the beginning of the phase.
I'm not. I want to look up the rules thing because I don't believe you can target that creature because you have to target while this is still on the stack, and that creature won't be on the battlefield yet.
I don't think so because it says at the beginning of the next combat phase, this turn. So I think it's going to give you, like on Arena, it gives you that little like logo on the
emblem thing.
Yeah. So like the next creature you play this turn comes into play with a 1/1 counter on it. I think that's what this looks like.
Those usually don't target.
That's true.
I could be wrong. Let me see.
I'm assuming that this target happens with the delayed trigger, not with the resolution of the card.
You're correct. I'm looking at the rules at the release notes. Yeah, you don't have to have a target to cast this.
Yeah, the way it was worded just didn't feel like, because it just said the fact that it said at the beginning of the next upkeep or combat, do the thing. So it felt pretty clean for me. I do love the little Red Riding Hood here, although I do see that she did hit, which is kind of sad for the werewolf. This looks like pretty good card advantage. Even if you miss, you still get to fight, which is really cool. You get to get a creature. You get to get the best creature in the top 5 cards. This card seems very good. I think it's a lot of card advantage.
The downside to this card, if you miss, is you just get a free punch. You get a punch for 2 mana at sorcery speed.
Yep. I feel like the downside is exactly that, a punch at sorcery speed. And if you don't have a creature, it's just as vulnerable as any other fighter punch anyway. It's just a dead card in your hand. But this at least lets you try to find a target.
The risk is the risk with this card, and you're right, it's the same on the others, but it feels a little different, is that you might try to cast it with no creatures and then whiff.
But at least you had the option. If it was a fight spell, you just die. Like if you need to fight a thing, chances are your life depends on it.
I think there's upsides and downs to that. There's exactly what you said is the upside. The downside is if you didn't have that option, maybe you hold it and draw a creature and get to use it the next turn or something. So
well,
I think
in that scenario, though, you wouldn't draw a creature for at least 5 cards, right? Because you just dug 5.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
So you are certainly dead.
True. That's a good point.
Rating wise, I think it's very good. I like being like dig 5 deep and fight seems really good, and it just gives you better targets. This feels like a 4 to me. I like that it is a one-sided punch. That gives it a boost. It is cheap. It is only 2 mana, but it is sorcery speed. But I like that it comes with a creature. So I would normally say that the ability on its own fight-wise is like a 3.5 because there's no stat line bonus and it's sorcery speed. But for the creature, I'm willing to call it premium.
I've got it at 3.5 just because of the risk of whiffing combined with not even just whiffing on creatures, but whiffing on one you have the mana to cast.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. I mean, you have to have the mana, right? You're 100% right there. If you have 5 mana, you cast this, you have to hit a 3-drop or lower. So it is a little risky. But the nice thing about this is you don't necessarily actually have to, right? That scenario only matters if your creature doesn't already kill a thing, because it is a punch spell. So you could just have your 2 or 3 drop fight their thing, and you just get to get the next best creature for your following turn. There'll be times where you don't need the creature to fight, I mean.
True.
So, either way, we're only a half a point off, so I think that's very, very reasonable. Werefox, Ferocious Werefox, 4 mana for a 4/3 with Trample. Create a monster roll token as the adventure at instant speed for 2 mana. I like instant speed rolls. That's a good one.
Instant speed rolls are just better combat tricks, right? Like because they get to stick around. It's like a counter, but a little better because of the permanent involved, and in this case, trample.
Yep. Instant speed +1/+1. You're right. I think that is, and trample. That's cool. That lasts, unlike +1/+1 and trample till end of turn kind of thing. I think this card's really good. I'm happy to have this. I think it is a 3.
3's right where I have it.
The creature, a little underwhelming, but I'm giving it that half-point bump for the adventure.
Agreed.
Garruk's Uprising, 3 mana When Group's Uprising enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures you control have trample. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This is a good reprint. A $5 uncommon that I needed for Commander.
This was like core, like M20 or something like that.
Yeah. I do love that this allows you to draw if it already is in play. So it's not super punishing for you to draw this late because then you'll already have established board. You can then still draw one card. So if you're in the deck that's playing this, I'm going to kind of assume you either play it on 3 and then cast your stuff and trigger it, or you're drawing it late and you can still kind of utilize it by having one of those creatures on the battlefield. I think this is a good card for green things.
Green things in general, particularly things like Gruul or Simic, probably are the big ones that are going to have the biggest creatures.
Yeah, and I feel like there's lots of decks that don't have big 4-drop 4-power things. But if you're in green, the chances of that happening are a lot less likely. So I'm willing to say that the average deck is more happy to have this. So I think this is like a 2.5.
2.5 sounds right. We shouldn't skip over and underrate the giving everything trample. In a deck that wants this card, that's real because everything's pretty big.
Yeah, absolutely. Graceful Takedown, 2 mana for a sorcery. Any number of target enchanted creatures you control, and up to 1 other target creature you control. Each deal damage equal to their power to target creature you don't control. So most likely it is a 2 mana 1/1 punch, and if you have enchanted creatures, you can buff that and hit harder. I think I'm running this without any enchanted creatures.
Oh, okay. I was reading this card so wrong. I was really confused as to the wording. I missed the word enchanted. I was like, why is it saying any number of creatures and 1 other creature?
I read it right for once and you didn't?
I literally just went to the rules to try to figure out why it was worded this way.
It's upside down day. I think I'm running this without enchanted creatures, and then you just get the nice bonus of getting some extra stuff, right?
Yeah, it's 2 mana punch and maybe better.
Absolutely. So I think this is a 3.5.
Agreed. Right there at 3.5.
Ground Seal, 2 mana for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities. This is a sideboard card. I like that it cycles itself, and I love the fact that this will mitigate, or this will brick most Golgari type decks, right? Like we saw in black, there were actually a lot of cards, including creatures, that had adventures to get cards out of the graveyard.
There were definitely a few in black. I don't think it bricks Golgari in this set as much as other sets because Golgari's main theme is food, but it definitely could brick a few cards in their deck.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm running this all the time, but I in most sets you'll run across that person who runs like 3 of the bring back spells and like some other stuff, and it might come in handy. I'm never picking it up early, don't get me wrong, but happy to have it in my sideboard for free.
It's also just fine to stick in your deck as a 23rd card if you've got a decent amount of bargain. It's just cycled, draw a card, and you get a free thing to sacrifice.
I didn't even think about that, honestly. Yeah, I like that.
I mean, I'm still probably in those decks looking for something better, but there's nothing wrong with this if that's what's there.
Yeah, 2 mana cycle is exactly right, and then you just get that free fodder. I'm here for that. I like it. Rating wise, I'm gonna say it is a 1.5. Keep an eye out for your sideboard.
Exactly. Mostly gonna stay in your sideboard.
Gruff Triplets, 3 green for Satyr Warrior. It should be warriors, but whatever. There's 3 of them. It's in the title.
It's the Billy Goat's Gruff.
It has trample. It's a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, if it isn't a token, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. When the triplet dies, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the power on each creature you control named this. Put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to its power. So when the first token dies, you give the other two +3/+3. They're all 6s. And then when one of those dies, it becomes a 12/12.
So it starts off as a 6 mana, basically 9/9.
Correct.
3/3/3s. And yeah, if one dies, it becomes 2 6/6s. Yeah, and then so it goes from 9 to 12 to 12.
Yep. No, it goes from. Oh, I see what you're saying. 9. Okay, yeah. You were adding them all together. I was like, no, it goes from 3 to 6 to 12. What are you smoking?
Total power. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. I'm here for this card, but the 3 green is a little weird. But like, there's mana dorks that make green, and it's 6 mana, so you're not getting this cheap anyway. I think this card is pretty darn good. I'm gonna call this like. I'm gonna call this like a 4.5.
I think it's there too. It's great with any sort of equipment or pump spells for when they die. They drop even more counters then.
I can't wait to play this and just attack one of them into their 6/6 and just be like, block me, bitch. I dare you. And just look at them, just like, you can't block because this is just going to get so much worse for you.
Yeah, normally cards like this that are, even if you get a lot of power spread out at expensive costs, aren't necessarily that great because 3/3/3s do nothing against the 5/5, at least on offense. But the fact that these just grow to become bigger, yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah, can you imagine the situation where they have a 5/5 and you play this? You attack with your 3/3 and they can't block you. And then they can't attack you back because you'll just double block. And then they all grow anyway because they can only kill one of them. Oh, this is so cute. I can't wait for the combat shenanigans that will ensue. Rating-wise, I do think that this is a 4.5. It leaves a lasting effect. They have to deal with all of them at the same time or die. That is essentially what they have to do.
Black has some removal that can deal with this, whether it be exile or -X effects.
Yeah.
So then they die as 0/0s. But yeah,
most of those will be far and few between, and even if they deal with one of them in that way, they still have the other two to deal with.
True.
Hamlet Glutton, 7 mana for a 6/6 with Bargain. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it's bargained. Okay. And then it has Trample, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. So you can bargain it for 5 mana.
Is this what Hammy looks like when he gets fat?
This is what Hammy looks like when I will not give him his treats.
Hammy smash.
Yeah. Rating-wise, I think this is okay. I would love to play a 5 mana 6/6 with Trample. And you'd be surprised how often the gain 3 life matters. Like, there have been several 6-drops that do this where it ETBs and gains you 3 life. And those come in handy quite often.
We were joking earlier about Colossal Dreadmaw, but 6 mana 6/6 Trample was always playable. This is sometimes better, sometimes more expensive, sometimes less, but you get 3 life. I'm okay with all that.
Yep. And if you're sacking like a food token or something to do this on turn 5, Bargain can hit so many things. Food, treasures, rolls, and a lot of cards just have those things built in. On turn 4, you fight a thing and it gives you a roll. On turn 5, you play a 6/6 and you just snowball the game. And that feels really, really strong.
Sacrifice one of your Gruff Triplet tokens.
Oh my god, because that is a token, you're right.
Make the other ones bigger.
Oh, man. But that Gruff Triplet costs 6, so, this is already going to be in play.
It's not quite on curve.
Rating-wise, I think this is a solid card. I'm going to give it a 2.5. It's a fine top end if you didn't find anything better, and oftentimes you won't.
Sounds about right. I like it at 2.5 as well.
Hardened Scales. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put onto creatures you control, put 1 +1/+1, put an additional +1/+1 on instead, whatever. You guys know how this card works. Not a limited card, and there doesn't seem to be a heavy +1/+1 synergy. There is a roll, but it only works until the creature has 4 power or toughness or whatever one it is. Toughness. So that's not going to give you a lot of triggers, and this will actually just make it stop triggering sooner. So you might get one extra counter out of it. So,
I mean, happy to have this if I have Gruff triplets, but otherwise, probably not.
Even Gruff triplets isn't that much, right? Because it's just one additional +1/+1 counter. You're turning your 6/6s into 7/7s, and it's a 2-card combo for one additional +1/+1 counter. I'm not doing that.
Then the 7/7 becomes a 15/15.
I mean, that's win more, Yanks.
True.
Win more, why don't you?
Hey, a 1-mana card that could be win more is an accomplishment.
Rating wise, I'm going to call this a 1. There might be a deck where you do have the ability to make multiples of those rolls. You've got, I mean, even the fight spell wasn't a counter, it was the roll. So I don't know. I don't think there's going to be a counter theme in this set.
I doubt it, unless we see one of those cards that's like expensive, like Overrun that puts counters on everything. Which I doubt, because I think they're using rolls, like you said, in place of counters for the most part.
Yeah, I would love to see this in a set that has like Outlast, or a set that has like the little guy that says, pay 5, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Or there are sometimes rares that say, every time you play a creature, put a +1/+1 counter, or something like that.
And that is where it started, right? Kanzatark here with Outlast.
Hollow Scavenger, 3 mana for a 3/2 with Adventure. You can pay 1, create a food token at sorcery speed, and you can pay 1, sacrifice a food. Hollow Scavenger gets +2/+2 until end of turn and activate only once each turn. So you play, solid 1-drop, curve filling 2-drop, and then there's that threat of activation that you can cast at instant speed, which kind of does make this a little bit of a better threat than you would expect.
1-mana adventures are great because you just get so many times in Limited you have that random spare mana.
Yeah.
Where you just basically are casting it for free, especially when you're getting it for free on another card.
Or you just don't, and then you cast your big giant, right, on 5. It's fine. This card seems very good. I like it as a 2.5.
2.5 sounds about right.
Hollow Galefang, 4 mana for a 4/4 with Vigilance. It has haste as long as you own a card in exile that has Adventure. So as long as you are adventuring, this thing has haste. I don't really care. Like, that's cool. I would love it to have haste, but if it doesn't, I still think it's a 4/4 Vigilant for 4. I'm fine with that.
The haste is just, it'll come into play every once in a while, and sometimes if you have, you might just throw something into, if you have extra mana, into the adventure mode just to maybe hit them for 4 out of nowhere, but it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, like I would certainly rather it did have it, but I'm saying I'm not running this card or running it based on whether I think I can unlock the haste. Because just as often as my deck wants to hit for haste, it also needs to stay back and block. So Rating-wise...
It has Vigilance.
Oh, that's true. I did forget about that. But either way, I do like the card a lot. I'm playing it regardless of whether I have adventures, and hopefully I get the bonus. So rating-wise, I think this is a 3.
A 3 just on stats and keyword alone.
Yep. The Huntsman's Redemption, 3 mana for a Saga. Chapter 1, create a 3/3 Beast token. Great, you're already getting your value. 2 mana, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, search your library for a creature or basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then Chapter 3, up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. I like that the second chapter is a may ability. So if I don't want to sack my creature because I need it for whatever reason, great. Or you can sacrifice something smaller. I think this is a fine Saga. You're getting decent value.
It's nothing game breaking. It's just value. Like you said, you got your value on Chapter 1. You're at par there. So everything after that's just nice bonuses.
Yeah. And hopefully, you can find something that is cheaper to sacrifice, like a rat or, I don't know, maybe there are creatures with like death effects or something. Probably not, but, girl can dream. Worst case scenario, you play this, you sack your 3/3 for your big game-ending bomb if you have one, and then you wait to cast it. So it was essentially search for your big bomb and give 2 creatures +2/+2. But it could just be make a 3/3, skip a turn, and then give 2 creatures +2/+2. I think that's fine for green beats.
But yeah, it also allows you to get out from under, like a lot of sacrifice things do, right? From pacifism type spells.
Yep, that's true. I like that.
So, especially since Bargain is a lot of your sacrifice in this set, which doesn't let you free non-token creatures or use non-token creatures.
Or if you're not taking the second thing, if you're not using that, you can maybe sack this at the end of the third chapter for Bargain.
True.
Cool. I mean, I think this is a good card. I think it's solid. I think it is a 3.
It's a 3.
Leaping Ambush, 1 mana for an instant, +1/+3, gains reach, and untap it. Sneaky Reach, creatures that they don't think can block, and they're big and their booties are bigger. I think this card's fine. I think this is a 2.5 in as far as combat tricks go, but you can cut it, and I'm not running them in multiples usually.
I agree with pretty much all that. I tend to like defensive combat tricks like this to get, sneakily ambush things.
I do like them in the sideboard.
Certainly, yeah, if you see a deck with a bunch of flyers, you'll bring this in.
All right. You like it at 2.5?
2.5, yeah.
Leyline of Abundance, 4 mana. If it's in your opening hand at the beginning of the game, you can put it onto the battlefield at the start of the game. Whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional. You can pay 8, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And then if you have hardened scales, then you actually have something to put counters on things.
Yes.
I don't care about the middle clause. What?
Until you get to 8, this doesn't do anything.
Correct. Unless you have 2 mana dorks.
Yes.
I feel like this is a card I want to have in my pool that will probably not make the cut in most decks, but then we'll get sideboarded in for long games. Like long, grindy, green-on-green mirror matches.
Sure, I can see that in some cases.
And it's a very corner case. Like 8 mana is a lot as like a late game mana sink, and I do not want to see this card at all for a very long time.
Well, and it probably cost you 4 mana in the best situation because you really don't want it in your opening hand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're waiting until you have 8 mana, you probably have a free turn where you don't have a play anyway.
Probably.
Because, this takes a card. So it is a dead draw, but you don't play it early. You just wait until, turn 8 on 6 mana, and then you just cast it because you have nothing else to cast. Because you drew this stupid thing.
This is just a 1 for me.
Yeah, it's a 1 that I will probably play. Because I want to activate it. Nature's Will, 4 mana enchantment. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, tap all lands that player controls and untap all lands you control. Huh. I do not care.
Interesting. It's an interesting effect, but it's more for constructed or probably more for commander than anything.
Yeah. And if your opponents have left open mana on your turn, they either A, don't have anything to cast, or B, have combat tricks or removal that they probably are doing before the creatures connect anyway. I guess it protects you from like counter magic in your second main, but I don't care.
Exactly. There's just not enough that decks are trying to do post-combat in this at instant speed that it matters that they're just not going to do pre-combat in that case.
So you get a 1, my friend.
1 it is.
Knight of the Sweet's Revenge. 4 mana for enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, create a food. Foods you control have tap, add a mana. Oh, hello. Okay. And then for a lot of mana, 7, you can sacrifice the Knight of the Sweet's Revenge. Creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of foods you control. Activate only as a sorcery.
This card's interesting. You definitely need enough food token creators to get some value out of this, but if you do, I mean, you're ramping. You're already at 4. You're
this is putting you at
at
6 on 5 if you were to curve out with it.
True.
And there's a chance you could actually have, like, if you had the wolf for 1 mana, make a food, you know what I mean? There are multiple things that kind of come into play, make a food. So you might play this. The food doesn't have summoning sickness because it's an artifact. So you play this on turn 4, and let's say you have 2 food. You could still play a 2-drop or a fight spell. Like, you still have a little bit of flexibility there.
You do.
It's not great, but like I think this is playable in decks that really want to go tall and have a food synergy.
It suffers from the usual things that, expensive ramp spells do. It's like, do you really need all that mana at that point? But the fact that you have that sacrifice ability at the end is nice, and the food has some. It's not just getting lands; you're getting something has some value.
This will be good if you have cards like the triplets, right?
Yeah,
and it's not only helping with getting to 6; it's helping getting to green, green, green. And again, I do like the big overrun spell at 7. I don't hate it, but the average deck, this is a 1. You don't want this. It's only for the food deck, and in the food deck, I think it is like a 2.5.
That sounds about right.
Parallel Lives, 4 mana for a mythic enchantment. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice as many tokens instead. Oh, it's like a doubling season.
It's half of doubling season.
Yeah, it's half of doubling season. Again, I don't think the average deck will want this, but there are a lot of tokens with rats, food, and treasure. So it's possible that you'll find a deck that wants it, but I don't think that this set has a heavy token creation synergy. So I'm going to say that this is a 1.
One it is.
All right. Primal Vigor, 4 mana. If 1 or more tokens would be created, twice that many tokens are created instead. Holy shit, there's like 4 of these things in this set. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put onto a creature, twice that many counters. So this is like the other thing plus the hardened scales smushed together.
Well, actually, just because I don't even know, what is the difference between this card and doubling season? I guess it's for everybody, not just you.
Yes. So it's a budget doubling season.
Just want to make sure I'm like not missing something, right? Yeah, doubling season is just under your control, and this is everybody. Yeah, okay. And I guess it doubles other counters, but that's not really relevant. Limited.
Oh yeah. Doubling season's other counters. This is only +1/+1. Yeah.
No, this isn't just 1 extra counter. This is double. It says twice that many.
No, you were saying other types of counters.
No, agreed. Right? Sorry, I was responding to chat.
Oh. I was agreeing with you. I didn't know
You're
that.
right.
So doubling season is all other counters, right?
Yes, doubling season is all other counters.
Okay. Rating-wise, the chances are, if you are in the business of these things, great. Again, it's the same as the last thing. You probably won't be. The average deck, I don't think will want to be. So I'm going to give it a 1. It's a build around. But I'm not scared of it being for everybody because there's, it's a build around. So if you're taking advantage of it, but the chances are your opponents aren't. So it's still fine.
Agreed. I mean, maybe there's a deck where you get all 3 of these things.
Prismatic Omen, 2 mana. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. Oi. So unlike Mystical Archives and Strixhaven, where those cards were almost all very bomby and limited, this one seems like all Commander reprints, which I'm not mad about it. I love this art and I want to play it in my Commander deck, so I'm kind of on board. But damn, this is a lot of extra reviewing for no reason.
That doesn't surprise me, right? Like rare enchantments are a lot of times useless and limited.
But there's so many of them.
So, like, I'm not surprised that so many of them are completely useless.
But Mystical Archive, Strixhaven, why did they design those to be all cards that were reasonable and limited? And they chose to make a bunch of choices here that don't impact limited.
Agreed.
Right? They could have put something else here.
True, I think I got it. It's a lot of just the card type. There are a lot of splashy instants and sorceries that are still good. There are more enchantments that fall flat and limited.
Agreed,
but why did you to build around them?
But so why choose to only do enchantments for this? Is my question. Like,
It's kind of weird. They've done this a few times, right? They did this with like when they did expeditions, right? It was all lands and it was all artifacts, and it was.
But expeditions were super rare. This is one per pack, right?
No, but it's a similar idea. They did that with instants and sorceries, and then the ones in
artifacts.
Oh yeah, artifacts and Brothers War, and Mom were all creatures, but now it's all enchantments.
Yeah. I don't. If I were in set design, I was like, let's do a thing and include one in every pack. I wouldn't be like, let's make that whole cycle useless in limited.
I mean, I wouldn't put any of this stuff in draft boosters to begin with if it was up to me.
I like the idea of reprinting things that are good, like Wormcoil Engine. Like those, cards need reprints.
For sure, I just would keep them out of draft.
Exactly, or I would at least make them the things that are useful for draft. Is my critique. I would like at least half of them to be relevant.
I guess the fact that so many of them are bad is it reduces the feel bad of getting there aren't as many ones that are going to beat you while you get crappy ones.
It does mean that money drafting will be good in draft. Like if you have draft tokens from like pre-order bundles or something, just go and sign up and then just like take all of these.
Yeah.
All right. Rating wise, it's going to be a 1. You can build a 5-color hot mess, but the average deck isn't going to be a 5-color hot mess, so it's not going to be relevant.
Especially because that deck would be terrible if it didn't draw this.
I mean, there's other things. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Red Tooth Genealogist, a 3-mana 2/3 elf advisor. When it enters the battlefield, create a royal roll token and attach it to a target creature you control. So you can attach it to itself. That's cool.
The ability to attach that sort of thing. Wait. No, another target.
Oh, it does say another target. Boo! It's still good, though. It's still 3/4 worth of stats for 3 mana, so I'm on board. And it's an extra target, and it does celebration. I think this is a 3.
2 permanents create something for bargain. Yeah, I like it as a 3.
All right, Red Tooth Vanguard. The teeth do not look red. False advertising. 2 mana for 8. What?
So at least make the sword blades red, so it's kind of like red teeth.
Ooh, that's a good call. Yeah, they could have done that. 2 mana for a 3/1 with trample. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, return Red Tooth Vanguard from your graveyard to your hand. Tell me more. This is a 3/1 for 2 mana that is good. What?
What?
I like this card.
Oh yeah, this card's fantastic. In most sets, you just look at that and you're like, okay, that's not going to happen very often. But with rolls flying all over the place,
I mean, just a 3/1 for 2 mana that can do anything that is not absolute shit is great. Like this is the like loser roll. Like the loser. Like, we need to have a 2-drop in white. Okay, let's make a 3/1. What's it going to do? Nothing. Okay, put it in. Ship it. Like, that is the set design for 3/1s in most sets. But this does a thing. And it's green. It's card advantage in green. Oh, I love it. This is a 3.
Yeah, I will say that seems to be happening less because I think there's a new rule at Wizards that you're not allowed to print vanilla anythings anymore.
Well, sometimes they're like sack and kill an artifact or something, and you're like, oh, there's no artifacts in this set, but whatever. Like maybe I'll hit a Horn of Gondor, and you don't really care. But like, this is good.
Oh, this card's very good.
I'm excited. All right, you agree a 3?
I agree, it's a 3.
Return from the Wilds, 3 mana, choose 1. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle. Create a 1/1 human soldier creature token something, or create a food. That is
keyword 2. Keyword here. Choose 2.
Yeah, 2 things, which makes celebrate work, which makes bargain fantastic, which makes creature and food synergies and ramp and fixing. This is going to see play in every deck. I'm fine with this card.
It's a very flexible card. I guess it's not good late game, but most ramp spells aren't. Okay, at least you're going to get a 1/1 out of this, or 2 things to sack.
Most 3-drops are not particularly good late game, so that's fine.
Yeah, this card's good. This is exactly what you want, sort of flexibility on, especially if you're going to be paying 3 for ramp instead of 2.
Yanks. So you play this on 3 at common, you get to ramp to 4, and you make a sackable thing to bargain away on 5 to cast your 6/6 giant.
Yep.
Dope. So on turn 4, you're casting a 6/6 giant with trample. Not on 5, on 4 because you ramped. I'm gonna do it. It's so good. Oh, I like this card. Okay, this card's cool. I'm gonna give it a 3.
3 sounds right. It's kind of reminiscent of Wood Elves. It's more flexible, but that was a 3-mana 1/1 elf that put a forest into play.
Yeah.
And that card was always very good, and this is just more flexible.
None of the modes are super good, but all of the modes being wide-reaching and flexible is very good. Root Rider Fawn, 2 mana for a 1/3 that taps for green, and you can pay 1, add 1 mana of any color. Ooh, 2 mana Mana Dork that also filters. This is good. I like this. This is a 3.
The pay 1 to add 1 of any color always feels bad when you have to use that as fixing, but not when you're getting it on a Mana Dork that you're playing anyway.
Yeah, if it is just that ability, then it's not actually ramping you. But this is like the ramp and then later fixes you to like play your black removal spells that you splashed. Fantastic.
3 sounds right.
Royal Treatment, 1 mana for an instant. Target creature you control gains hexproof until end of turn. Create a royal roll attached to that creature. These cards have been very good. Now, they don't, they normally give +1/+1. This one does because it gets the roll. And then it makes it harder for your opponents to touch them again. So it's like, don't touch my stuff right now, and preferably don't ever touch my stuff. So I like this card.
Why am I blanking on the name of the green, the one that
Snakeskin
was always
Veil.
really good? Snakeskin Veil. This is just
Blossom
better.
something.
This is just better than Snakeskin Veil, right?
Yeah, because it has additional ward.
It has ward 1, and the token can be sacrificed to something useful.
Yeah, I mean, if that is relevant to you, yes.
If that's relevant.
It also is a little weaker if your opponent has destroy the enchantment or whatever, which they couldn't do to a counter. So I'm going to call that a wash. But the ward is nice. And you can't double the +1/+1 with all of the doubling seasons and primal vigors and hardened scales like you could have if this was a Snakeskin Veil.
True. This card's very good. Snakeskin Veil was just blowout after blowout, and this is going to do it as well.
What is the Blossom card? I keep forgetting. I want
Blossoming
Defense. Thank you, Ninjari. Yeah, Ninjari nailed that. Good job. So yeah, these cards are playing very well. I've lost many a game saying I win to everything except for a Snakeskin Veil, and then I did not win that game.
I only have 1 mana. What could they possibly... Oh, Snakeskin Veil again.
And I call it, too. I'm just like, anything but, please. And it's just always there. Rating-wise, I think these are, like I said, they play massively higher than you would expect. I think this is a 3.
There's a reason this is an uncommon for a combat trick.
Yeah, I like the roll
like
a lot. All right, Season of Growth. What?
I said I like it as a 3.
Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, draw a card. These are cute and very specific to a very specific deck. I have seen this in Limited before, and it is useful sometimes, but the average deck I don't think is going to be targeting their own creatures often enough.
I think you want a 3 to 4 like fighter bite spells to play this, and also have a reasonable use for this card, like for bargain or something. Because if you get 1 card back plus a scry and then can sack it to bargain, it's not a lot, but you got something out of it.
I'm considering this card at a minimum of 5 target spells, like 3 fights and 2 pumps or something. Then sure. And then because the scry is also nothing to sniff at. You get 2 scries. That is some really nice hand fixing. You get 1 card scryed to 1 land late game scryed to the bottom. Like that is essentially a bonus card draw at that point, right? I think every 2 scries is going to, maybe 3 scries is going to count as a card draw.
I forget which of the pro players was always talking that like scry 2 is almost equivalent to draw 1.
Yeah. So rating wise, I think it's very playable, but it's in a very specific deck that has to target itself. So I'm going to call it a 2.
2 sounds about right.
All right. Sentinel of Lost Lore, 3 mana for a 3/4. Okay. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1 or more. Return target card you own from exile that has an adventure to your hand, lets you double adventure, that's cool. Or put target card you don't own into exile that has an adventure onto the bottom of its owner's library. Exile target player's graveyard. Wow, this is pretty dope. So you can just like brick their adventure card and double adventure yourself if you want to.
Sure, and nuke a graveyard while you're at it. Why not?
Yeah. This is really cool. And it's fantastically statted on its own. I think this is very good. I think this is like a 4.
I think it is too. Also, I kind of weirdly worded. I wonder if, let's see if it's in the release notes.
I don't think you can exile a adventure creature from your graveyard and get it back, because I think they resolve in the order of the bullet points. If that's what you're looking
agreed. At. No, what I was going to look up just as if for some reason a card with adventure got exiled by like a black removal spell, you should be able to get it back.
Oh, yeah, I think you can.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to... I'm pretty sure you can. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether the card was cast as an adventure. It just has to be an exile with an adventure on it.
I think it would specify something along the lines of like exiled in the adventure zone or some shit.
Yeah, they don't have that. That's the weird thing. It's just exiled.
I think if they wanted it to work that way, they would make that.
They would make one, probably.
Yeah. And they have tokens that say on an adventure, and like in Magic on Arena, that does like kind of go into a little sidey area, which is very clearly like designated adventure.
That's one of the things I dislike about Arena, that's not really the way the game works. Because it's like on Moto, it just goes into the exile zone, because that's really where it is.
Yeah. And they could also word it weirdly, like get back a creature that is on an adventure, and they could make that distinction.
Sure.
But whatever. Rating, I like this card. I think it is a 4. It will have a wide range of play, and more often than not, I haven't seen any of the adventures be like, oh, I want to cast that adventure side more than I want to cast the creature side. So sometimes you might choose to just like not even get your own creature back. Well, I guess you always would, because you then at least have the flexibility of doing either. But when you hit their creature, that's going to feel really good.
That's going to feel really good. We did see a couple that had removal as the adventure.
And honestly, there's no reason not to, right? Because you could still just cast it for the creature type. It just gives you that flexibility, which is always very nice.
Definitely.
Sky Beast Tracker, 4 mana for a 2/4 with reach. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, make a food. Free food. Sneaky reach. Let's do it. 2.5.
Sure. 2.5 sounds right. It's just free value. Although that thing's pretty big. I'm guessing it's standing up with the birds. I don't think that's going to be that sneaky.
You never know. People don't see flying and then they don't like think about it again.
True.
So, a girl can dream. I love Sneaky Reach. It's like my favorite
Sneaky
thing.
Reach is great.
All the land. Do you agree at a 2.5?
2.5 sounds right.
All right. Moving on to Spider Food. Oh, poor little child idiot.
Spider Food does whatever a Spider Food does.
3 mana for a sorcery. Destroy up to 1 target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Create a food token. I wish this was instant speed. Like, I'm comfortable with the number of enchantments in the set just as rolls that I would put this in a main deck. Hopefully I hit a flying creature. If not, I think I will use it as a combat trick for rolls. But at sorcery speed, I'm a lot less likely to do that.
This feels like a sideboard card. 23rd playable is fine because you're getting something with the food. You'll hit something, but I do think a lot of times you're not going to be happy about what you're hitting.
I think if this was an instant speed, I might try to sneak it in decks with like, where I'm a little lighter on removal just to help with like flying creatures. But at sorcery speed, I think it is a 23rd playable, most likely left to the sideboard.
If your green deck just doesn't have reach creatures or other good ways to deal with flyers, then by all means main deck this.
1.5 for me.
1.5 it is.
All right. Stormkeld Vanguard. This guy looks like a badass riding an armored bear. 6 mana for a 6/7, can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. And for 2 mana, you can cast it as an adventure, bear down, and destroy target artifact or enchantment. I like that.
It's chuckling at bear down.
Yeah, this card is fantastic. I'm a big fan of this. Sometimes, honestly, the creature clause of 2 power or less can't block. Sometimes we'll just kill your opponent if they need, like, when they're in Chumpsville. So I think this is very good.
It's a nice alternative to trample on some of these big things because they just can't be chumped endlessly by little tokens.
Yeah, I do really actually like this free artifact / enchantment spell, and I love having this on my top end. I think this is one of our better, like, 6-drops that I've seen because of the adventure side of things.
And anytime you can get that effect for free into your deck, even in sets that don't have a lot of artifacts or enchantments, there are usually a few rare ones that are game breaking, and just having it out to it without costing you a card is great.
Yeah, rating wise, I'm pretty high on this card. It's probably just a 3, but it's better than most of my 3s.
Yeah, I was actually going to say 3/5.
I want to, but I'm struggling. But yeah, I think it is very good. I could definitely see it being that good.
I mean, it's a big dumb idiot. It can kill a artifact or enchantment, and it's got a pun for a sorcery spell name. It's got to be great.
All right. So I think we're both in that 3/5 range. It might be a little high. Tanglespan Lookout. 3 mana for a 2/3 satyr. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Yes, please. There's a lot of rolls in green so far.
There are a lot of auras.
The fight spells come with rolls. The hexproof spells come with rolls. This card is a 3.5. This is very good.
You're going to occasionally have a deck that doesn't want this, but not often. And if it's any time before pack 3, you'll be able to find enough rolls to make it good.
If you have a green deck that doesn't want this, you're going to go 0-3 anyway, so don't worry about it. Right? Like, this is good if your deck has, like, 3 free rolls.
Sounds about right, yeah. Because you're not losing much on just a 3 mana 2/3 to begin with.
No. And you get 1 card draw out of this, you feel great. And if your deck is, like, good on them, then you feel amazing. So, yeah, I like this card a lot.
There are 4 green cards that make rolls.
This is just an uncommon. There's a rare that does better than this, but this has to be at least a 3 in every deck.
I think there's going to be the occasional deck that doesn't want it, but not the average. So on the average, I like that. Like a 3.
Territorial Witchstalker, 2 mana for a 2/3 defender. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it gets +1/+0 and can attack as though it didn't have defender. So it attacks as a 3/3 if you have a 4-powered creature, which Gruul and green typically will. So, I mean, 2 mana for a 2/3 defender is still not bad that can attack sometimes.
Nothing wrong with this to fill out your curve.
2.5.
There are better 2-drops, but this is good enough. 2/5 is right.
I think for green, this is better than the average 2-drop.
Probably.
Because I'm fine with green not being, like, overly aggressive on turn 2. Like, that's more red-white's thing. I want this to be aggressive on turns, like, 4 and 5. And for a 2-drop that can get in there and box, I think I'm pretty happy. All right, Thunderous Debut. A bajillion mana, 8 mana for a bargain sorcery. Look at the top 20 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards from among them. If this spell was bargained, put the revealed cards onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put them into your hand and shuffle. If you have 8 mana and you're not bargaining this, what are you doing with your life?
It's basically tooth and nail. It has both modes, either just get them or put them on the battlefield. Although I guess in this case, you have to put the revealed cards onto the battlefield as opposed to that where you could put other cards.
I mean, it's playable. If I cannot bargain in my deck, I'm probably not playing this. I don't think I want to spend 8 mana to dig 2 creatures out and not do anything. But if I can reliably put them onto the battlefield, I will consider this.
It's another one of those cards that just gets a lot better with, not only in this case, the better cards in deck, but the bigger cards.
So
because
rating,
even if you're going to...
Oh, go ahead.
So even if you're going to likely be able to trade up on mana, so you can get a 4 and a 5, it's still so hard to get to 8 that you're not really turning any real profit there because of how long it's taken you to get up to 8.
Yeah. But top 20, 2 best cards left in your deck. I'm here for it. So it's gonna see play in any deck that I can reliably hit 8 on. So like if I have some rampers, some like mana dorks, which there has been 2 that are pretty good already. So I'm happy to play this card. I think it's like and there was that 3-drop spell that just digs out a land and ramps you too. Yeah, this feels 8 seems fine in this format for green. I'm gonna give it a 3.
I think it's a 3, and we might in like 2 weeks think it's like a 1 if the format's too fast, but
or a 5 if it's not.
or a 5 if it's not. Yeah.
All right, Titanic Growth, 2 mana for a +4/+4. This is a fan favorite. It's been around for since the dawn of time. It's like a 2. It's a 23rd playable card. Put it in if you've got space.
Okay, the flavor text, I can't help but think of Jaws with the, I think you're going to need a bigger boat. It looks like you need a bigger net, Mr. Fey Catcher.
Oh, and then the Fae says that. That's very cute.
Yeah.
Aw, because he's got a little like butterfly net.
Yeah, don't think that's going to work.
Aw, that is very cute flavor text. All right, it's a 2 though, right?
2, yeah.
Toadstool Admirer. We have 1 mana for a 1/1 with Ward 2, and you can pay 4 and put a +1/+1 counter on Toadstool Admirer. Okay, +1/+1 counter to go with all of our +1/+1 counter synergy. Maybe there's a world where we're doing that.
Is this the first card that's ever had a ward cost higher than its mana cost?
Probably.
You don't usually see Ward 2 on a 1-drop.
There might be like a weird fairy or something where
There
like that's all
probably
it
is
does.
somewhere, but
Yeah. Rating wise, it's fine. It's an okay late game mana sink if you need early cards, but I'm not really interested. If you have a lot of those 2 and 3 drops that when they ETB put a roll onto something else, like there was that 2/3 3-drop in green that put a roll into something, and I really want to make sure I'm hitting that 1 and 2 drop slot. I think this is a okay card, but it's just a 2 for me.
just a 2. I'd be happier with it in decks that want to go really long.
If you have a lot of the specific roll that puts +1/+1 counters onto things, this would also be a pretty premium target because the Ward 2.
Sure.
Which
the
young
hero roll.
Young hero, yeah. If you're working with young hero rolls, this is I think much better. Tough Cookie, 2 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, create a food. Pay 3. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 4/4. And you can pay 2, sacrifice Tough Cookie, you gain 3 life. So it's a food, it makes a food, it's a 2/2, and also makes your food into 4/4s.
This is a lot of value on a bear.
Yeah. Triggers Celebration, and it doesn't say only once per turn. It's not a tap ability. You could just dump 9 mana end of the game and make 3 4/4s.
Here come the food.
Yeah, this is very, very good. This feels very good, like a 3.5, like to me.
I've got it as a 3, but I do think it's very good.
All right. Troublemaker, 2 mana for a 2/2 with Bargain. When Troublemaker enters the battlefield, if it was bargained, exile target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. Okay. I like that. A bear that has a built-in like scavenging ooze ability on it, and you can choose to sack a food or treasure or whatever. I like this. So if you have it on early game, you just curve out with a bear, and if you draw it mid to late game, you just hold on to it until you need it. I like that.
Maybe I'm missing something. Scavenging ooze.
The other ooze.
Oh, acidic slime.
Sure. Slimy,
Sorry.
oozy,
Like,
whatever.
Like, this doesn't touch the graveyard. I was very confused for a
Slime, ooze, whatever. Same tomato, potato, whatever. All right. I I think this card is very good. 2.5?
2.5, yeah.
All right. We're almost there. Unnatural Growth. Colorless green at the beginning of each combat. Double the power and toughness of each creature you control. That's theirs too, which is really crazy. I've lost many games of Limited to this, but your deck has to be able to cast it.
Of each creature you control, right?
Yeah. But I meant it happens on their turn.
Yeah, that's what you meant. Sorry.
So like they're good on the defense as well as the attacks.
Yes,
like when I first read this, I thought it was only for attacking. And I was like, well, it doesn't do anything if you're like behind. But no, it really does. It just makes it so they can't attack you. And it feels like it shouldn't be good, but I can tell you when this was first printed, I lost to it all the fucking time.
That's interesting. I remember this card being printed along. I don't remember what set it was in.
It's not that long ago, but
it's not. It's one of the Midnight Hunt.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's why I was going to say why I never felt like I ever played or lost this card, but that's just because you just played blue-black every time in that set.
I certainly lost to it more than I would like to admit. They just play this, and I'm just like, mother fudge sickles. All right, whatever.
Like 90% of my matches were blue-black mirrors.
I'm like feeling good. I have like 3 4/4s, and they have like 2 3s, and then they just win. I'm like, God damn it! All right. So it is not for the average deck. It's hard to cast. You got to have creatures, high creature count. So I was saying this is like a split card. It's like a 1 or a 4.
So 1/4 sounds right. It's probably a little worse than it was in that format, just because I think people are going to be running all sorts of enchantment removal, and there seems to be a bunch of incidental ones as well.
Yeah, like Scavenging Ooze.
Yes.
All right, Up the Beanstalk, 2 mana for an enchantment. When Up the Beanstalk enters the battlefield, and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, draw a card.
This is for Simic, blue-green, looking for
cycles.
Big spells. It cycles and provides you something to bargain at the worst.
I think this is okay. It's like a 2.
It's a 2. There'd be some decks where you're just going to snap this off like pack 3, pick 1 if you've already got a bunch of blue-green big spells.
Absolutely. Okay. Utopia Sprawl, 1 mana for Enchant Forest. Enters the battlefield, choose a color. Whenever Enchanted Forest is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional mana of the chosen color. So this is good for ramping and fixing if you're splashing a color. This is a 2. It's going to see play, but there will be lots of decks that aren't interested in this.
Exactly. It's kind of the way these cards always are, that just you stick on a land and
I love the idea of using it for ramp and then using it for bargain.
For bargain. That definitely helps.
Yeah, it gives it, some late game use, which is really, really cool. So just a 2 for me. Verdant Outrider, 3 mana for a 4/2, pay 2, can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less this turn, which is nice. It means it's a lot less likely to trade down because you have this ability when it is relevant and they have a bear, you could just activate and make them have to block with their 4/4 if they want to. But it's still okay. It's like a 2 for me.
You have to spend the mana in advance. It's not like a threat of activation card.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little bit worse, but you're certainly playable, especially if you've got any of these, few green payoffs for power 4 or greater things.
Yeah, absolutely. This will be a
cheap
one
way
for that.
To enable that.
Yeah, the 2 mana wolf, right? You play this, and then all of a sudden you're slamming for 3. That feels good. Virtue of Strength, 7 mana for the enchantment with Adventure. You can pay 1, return target creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. Seems good. And then you can pay 7. If you tap a basic land for mana, it produces 3 times that much instead. If I'm paying 7 for this, I don't care. Yeah, so this is probably my least favorite of the virtues, I believe. I still like 1 mana return a thing.
It's basically a raise dead is all that matters for this card.
If you've got cards like the little food gremlin.
Yep.
So that's cool if you need to dump a bunch of mana, or if you have cards like that little Utopia mushroom guy where you dump 4 mana and put counters on him. That's cool. You'd have to have a lot of that though to make this worth it. But I don't think you would have to have as much because of the adventure side. If you're just using this as a raise dead, then that's not that bad.
No, if you want raise dead in their deck, you'll just play this.
And if in the reverse, if I have 3 things that have mana sinks in it, like kind of infinite mana sinks, I would just put this in knowing that I will, most likely not get the value, but my worst case is the Raised Dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, rating wise, I think it's like a 2.
It's a 2.
Great. Welcome to Sweet Tooth. 2 mana for a saga. Chapter 1, make a 1/1 white human soldier. Chapter 2, make a food. Chapter 3, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is 1 plus the number of foods you control. So 2 +1/+1 counters. So it gives you 2 permanents and makes a 3/3, essentially.
At least, yep.
And triggers Celebration the turn it comes into play. This is pretty good. Good rate. 2 mana for a 3/3 plus a food token. Slow, but that's okay. I think this is a very solid 2-drop. I'm here for it. I think this is a 3.
They've done a good job of the sagas where they seem to mostly all work with both Celebration and with Bargain. And in this case, also food. Like, they all seem to be feeding into all of the mechanics, or at least 2 of them.
Absolutely. Rating-wise, what are you thinking?
I think it's like a 2/5.
Okay. I'm a little higher on it. I feel like it's really strong for a 2-drop. Okay, that is it for green, guys. We ran a little long. I'm so sorry about that. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think of green and what you think of Eldraine so far. And we will see you in the next video for multicolor.